No, we, but had to check up on the live on my side, and then I see you guys actually couldn't hear it, so we're gonna get started. Yep.
Go for No by Richard Fenton and Andrea Waltz. So I actually received 2 requests back to back the same week for me to do this book. And prior to that, I never even heard of it before. But when I took a look at the contents, I looked at what this book was about, I knew the reason why I was being asked twice in a week to do a discussion on this book. A lot of what I talk about on this channel is personal development and business, entrepreneurship type of business related books. And one of the most important factors of your success when it comes to entrepreneurship and business is your ability to act in the face of failure, to essentially handle rejection, people saying no to you. Now, this is important for multiple areas of your life, not just business and personal development, but every area of your life. Those that have an ability to not only handle rejection, but are able to look forward to rejection because they realize that success comes through the rejection, moving through the rejection. Those that can do that are going to increase the likelihood. I can't guarantee anything because nothing in life is guaranteed. But if you look back at any successful person or anyone that's achieved any kind of results at a high level, you'll discover that they went through countless rejections and countless failures. And that includes myself. That being said, I'm just getting started in the world of business in a lot of areas. I see myself as always getting started every day. So I recognize that I'm going to experience failure today, tomorrow, the next week, the next month. It's inevitable. And I actually realize that I enjoy failure because I evolved past some of the earlier stages of dealing with rejection. So we're actually going to talk about these stages. We're going to call, based on the book, 5 levels of failure. We're going to discuss why it's important to learn how to rewrite the story that you give to the word no, or the meaning that you give to rejection. And how, in today's world, this can serve you greatly because most people are afraid of rejection. And the opportunities are out there. The opportunities are actually not far away from you right now. If you have access to a computer and you're listening to this or you're watching this, you have the ability right now to create a business. You have the ability to connect with people that can transform your lives. You can do different things right now. You have access to it. And most likely it's free access with all the different social media channels and just the kind of connectivity that we have nowadays. The only thing that holds you back is your fear for reaching out to these people, your fear of taking action. Now, if this is the case, then we have a massive opportunity here. A massive opportunity to rewrite the story of what failure means to us. And that's what we're going to talk about. So we're going to start off with a couple of quotes. Number 1 is a quote that I pulled from the book. If you're succeeding fast enough, you're probably not failing fast enough, and you can't have one without the other. So if you're going to avoid one, you're going to avoid both. Okay? If you're not succeeding fast enough, you're probably not failing enough. One of the emails that I get constantly as this channel started growing is, how do I get started in business? What are the actions I should take? And usually what I do is I give a few actions. But very rarely do I get emails back from the individual saying, I took these actions and these are the results rapidly. And very, very, very rare, I would say almost never, does somebody repeat that process over and over and over again. Okay? Getting advice, watching one of these videos, taking action, reporting back, taking action based on the insights, and repeat, repeat, repeat. Now, some of you might actually be doing that by revisiting the videos, and that's why I create them. You know, take action, revisit the videos, take action, revisit the videos, because every time you watch the videos, Every time you read these books, you get further level insights. But the key here is that most people, even if they study business and personal development information, are not failing fast enough. They're procrastinating taking action. They wait too long. They think they have a contract to live forever, and the days, the weeks, the years are just passing by. And as the years pass by, they start to make even more excuses of why they can't do what they really want to do. It's their kids, it's their age, it's their health, it's whatever. And as the years go by, the stories get more sophisticated and more elaborate. But the reality is that right now, right at this moment, you can act. You can sit down. You can think about that one thing that you want to do right now that you've been procrastinating, and you can take action on that, and you can break through, and you can create the habit. Okay, I recommend that you watch my video, The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. You can create the habit of going for no, which is what we're going to talk about. So what does that actually mean, going for no? Well, what they have found in sales and in a lot of areas of life, that a large percentage of your success is a numbers game. Now, you can do things to optimize that success. You can improve your ability to persuade. You can improve your communication skills. You can improve your lead source. There's lists and lists of things that you could do to optimize. But if you're not in the arena, if you're not taking action, if you're not going out there, then you're going to miss the one very, very pragmatic reality about sales, and that is the more doors that you knock on, the more phone calls you make, the more people you reach out to and you make an offer, the higher the statistical probability that one of those deals are going to close, and that's far better than sitting there and contemplating and thinking about it. Now remember, one of my most important concepts is the biases for learning, and one of the biggest biases for learning is when you hear information like this, you say, yeah, I already knew that. But we know when it comes to personal development and business information, knowing it conceptually means nothing. Actions and results speak louder than words and your conceptual understanding of a subject. So what I want you to do right now is I want you to use this video, play it over and over again, and use it as a guide, use it as a reminder to get you to take the actions every day that you need to do to produce the results that you want. And if you take repetitive action, the statistical probability is that the deals will close just based on volume. And if you combine that with all the other information out there of optimization in your area, then you're going to make improvements and the numbers are going to increase. Your closing ratio, whether it's in sales, is going to increase. But you have to get out there. You have to take action, because that is how you learn real time. You get feedback, immediate feedback from the environment by taking action. And from that feedback, you build upon it and you move on to the next level. So if you're not succeeding fast enough, and we'll say this again, if you're not succeeding fast enough, you're probably not failing fast enough. And you're probably not failing fast enough because you're afraid of failure. You're afraid of your ego. You're afraid that people are going to laugh at you. The reality is that if somebody laughs at you for taking action, then they're wasting their own time. Okay? The results is what you're after, and you have to get over the fact that people are going to think whatever. They can think whatever they want to think. But all that's going to matter to you is your results and your growth. Now, the power behind this is that you can rewrite the story. You can start to enjoy failure. You can start to enjoy rejection and hearing no, and you will actually move towards hearing no. You want to hear no, because the more no's that you hear, the more yeses you're going to hear. And the better optimizations you'll have, more insightful data. And you're not going to consume business or personal development information for intellectual entertainment, like a lot of people do. You're going to consume this information to help you optimize based on the actions that you take. So I included one of my quotes that I reflected upon, that I pulled as a result of reading this book. It says, to overcome your fear of failure, you must be able to get good at hearing no And if you want to get good at hearing no, you have to be good at saying no. Okay? So this works both ways. Your inner world and your outer world is a mirror reflection. Your external world, you are giving it meaning real time from your internal world. If you have a hard time saying no to people, then you have a hard time understanding the value of boundaries. Now, this goes beyond the concepts covered in the book, but this is a reflection that I think is very important. When people say no to you, it's important to respect their boundaries. And maybe no doesn't mean absolute no, it just means not now. It depends on the context. But if you value people's boundaries like you value your own boundaries, then that no is not going to have that much negative meaning or any negative meaning at all. Because you understand that no just means pivot and go in the other direction and find the yes. Okay, so again, I'll repeat this again. To overcome the fear of failure, which is to essentially rewrite the story, you have to be able to get good at hearing no. And that's what this book discusses. And to add to it, if you want to get good at hearing no, one of the things you have to do is you have to get good at saying no. So what are all the areas in your life where you don't have a clear-cut yes or a clear-cut no? The worst thing that we could do for our brain is stay in the gray zone, stay in the unsure. We have to get good at making decisions. And if you are interested in raising your success, then you have to get good at making decisions and stop staying in the gray areas. One of the commitments that I made to myself is I'm either going win-win with the other person or there's not going to be a deal. I am not going to sit on a waiting period. I'm not going to take my time waiting for them to respond. It's either win-win, we work a deal by a deadline, or no deal. Okay? I don't want to be in the gray zone. This has released in me a lot of energy that was tied up, that was draining me, that was causing me stress. If clarity is what you want, and clarity contributes to the meaning you give to the word no, right? Those people that are clear see no for what it is. It's a calibrator to go either left or right, to ask the next person. They don't give it all this excess meaning, because all that excess meaning that you have to think about is taking you away from the now. All that matters is the now. Watch my video on Eckhart Tolle's Power of Now. If you want to stay present to the now, then you can't be attached to any meaning outside of the objective data that the no tells you. So they talk about in this book the 5 levels of failure. We're going to discuss these in detail. So essentially what happens is we go through these 5 levels, and what we want to do is we want to go all the way up to the 5th level. Okay, so everybody starts off at this level right here, the ability to fail. Everybody in this world has right now the ability, and I call it the opportunity to fail. Everybody has that. Okay, people can try things right now, and they could fail at it. And you might be thinking, if you're new to this stuff, like, how is that an opportunity? Well, if you study this book and you study the power of the depth, the deep, deep understanding of and the mechanics of failure and no in the personal development world, you'll realize that failure and hearing no moves you forward. It motivates you. It gives you objective data. It causes you to reflect upon whatever it is and then make an educated decision to think critically what to do next. And that ability that we have is universal. We all have that ability. So let's look at that quote right here. The underlying reasons that people become afraid of rejection are countless. The way that they are raised, the early traumatic sales experience, who knows and who cares? All I know is that inspirational CDs cannot coax your fears away. Threats won't scare them away, and ignoring your fear won't make it go away on its own. The only way is to learn to numb yourself to the word no. And numbing doesn't mean ignoring it. It says you're numbing yourself is to know isn't about ignoring it. It's about experiencing it so often that it eventually loses its power over you. And I'm going to add to that and say it's going to remove it, the power, the negative meaning is going to be replaced with a positive meaning when you recognize that the more no's you have, you find those yeses after the no's, it's going to be so worth it that you realize that you just got to go through the no's. You just got to handle the no's. And you don't have to worry about how you're going to handle the no because your brain is going to automatically rewrite the story. Once you start getting success as a result of rejection, you're going to look forward to the no because it's just another day, another work day. Okay, boom. At the end of the day, you're going to get a sale. In the midday, you're going to get the sale. A couple times a day, you're going to get the sale if you can just pick up that phone or send out the emails and go for that no. Now, a lot of people, once they experience rejection, they feel that pain of rejection and maybe the humiliation that came with it. They don't try again. They reinforce that story. And every time they get to a situation where they feel that they have to take action, that story comes back. It comes back in many areas of their lives. In dating aspects of their life, in business aspects of their life, career aspects, friendships, it doesn't matter. They're afraid to take action because they look at their past and they remember the situation where they were rejected and they don't want to relive that experience again. Now, the truth is they have evolved since then. They've gone through more life experience. They've gathered more data. They've gathered more insight. So that is not going to happen again, most likely. And all they got to do is take action and realize that maybe it wasn't so bad as the first time they got rejection because now they're a lot wiser. And they just got to go through that no, go through the rejection over and over again until they get a result that they enjoyed. And then they start to realize that it was totally worth it. Now, most people do not do it with enough presence and awareness and understanding, as I'm discussing here, revealing to you. So most people stay, 80% of people stay in level 1. Okay? And I put this over here, the key insights in perspective. I'm going to avoid the snares of groupthink from Robert Greene's 33 Strategies of War. And essentially one of the reasons why they stay in this level is because they look around and they see what everyone else is doing, and everyone else, most people, within their awareness, are afraid of failing. So if no one else is doing it and everyone else is staying in their comfort zone, then they feel comfortable staying in their comfort zone. One of the most important elements of building yourself up in personal development and business is to surround yourself with fanatical action takers, those that are interested in breaking through failure. They want to rewrite the story of failure and they're taking action to do so. Or they have already written the story of failure. They've evolved to these higher levels, which we're going to discuss in a moment. By surrounding yourself in that kind of consciousness, you're going to be around people that motivate you to take action. In fact, you're going to feel weird if you don't take action. That's the kind of feeling you want. You don't want to surround yourself with a group of people that are just sitting around and talking theory all day, because that's going to be the groupthink. And then, if you take action, it's going to make them uncomfortable, and they're going to tell you not to take action, maybe not directly, but indirectly. Or they're going to show you how to procrastinate by making elaborate stories of why to not take action. And then you're going to find it's really hard. It's going to take you a long time to get to the higher levels. You want to get to the higher levels as fast as possible because that's where the massive amount of success is. So you really got to watch the groupthink around. Most people are afraid to take action. So that's level 1. We want to get out of that. And everybody starts there. That ability to fail, we all have it. Next, we move on to, once we start to recognize that, hey, the more I fail, the more I start to learn about myself, I eventually get results. And then if I continue failing, I'll get more results. And this is just part of the process. You then develop the willingness to fail. The best way to desensitize yourself to a word is to use it. And the best way to desensitize yourself to an action is to do it. So whatever it is that you need to take action on, that essentially could either lead to a situation that is beneficial for you, whatever it is, that will produce either the yes that you want or the dreaded no that you want. You have to do it if it's a optimal decision or if it's an optimal outcome that you want. And the more you do it with repetition, the more your brain is going to go in and rewrite that meaning. And the more you read books like this and watch this video over and over again, the more it's going to make sense to you, and it's going to keep you in this consciousness. And then building upon what we said, we want to surround ourselves with people that think this way, that transact this way, that essentially navigate reality this way, to further build upon that new meaning that you've given to the word no. And then you're going to be excited to move forward. You're going to move, one of the things that I've learned in my business journey is I'm always trying to raise the bar and always trying to go to higher levels. And as I do, I get rejected. And I can feel this feeling of excitement that comes up when I get rejected. Because when I get rejected, that's when I know I'm in the arena. And that's when I know that I'm practicing what I'm talking about right now. And that's where I know I'm going to get the insightful data that I share with you in these discussions. And that's where I know that I'm on the right track for leveling up. I just got to stick with it and do the very things that I've always done and accelerate my progress. But if I'm not doing that, I'm not only staying still, but you can't stay still. I'm moving backwards. Okay? All my abilities are starting to atrophy. So you either are moving forward or you're moving backwards. And each of us has our own personal failure quotient. In other words, how many times a person is willing to fail before succeeding? How many times are they willing to get knocked down and then get back up, knowing that they are almost certain to get knocked down back again? How much failure can they endure on the road to success? So your ability to accelerate beyond this and get to the higher level is really going to be your ability to motivate yourself and put systems in place. Because we don't want to just rely on willpower. We want to put systems. We want to place ourselves in environments that encourage failure and cause us to rewrite the story of failure. Essentially bashes around. A good book to read is, I might do a video on it, is Anti-Fragile by Nassim Taleb. Get bashed around with rejection after rejection after rejection, so we get forged into a diamond. Okay? Become anti-fragile. And then that pathway, repeatedly on that pathway, till this becomes a habit. And most people tap out way too early. And, most people think that they have to do, 20 or 30 rejections before they get results, or 100 or 200 rejections. The truth is, it's the amount of rejections you have gone through till you hit the results, and we don't know the number. It can depend. It depends on your skill. It depends on what it is you're trying to do. But you have to be willing to stick with it till it happens, over and over and over again, realizing that you are optimizing and incrementally growing through progressive overload with every attempt. And if you can think, and for me, I've done this, and it's been really helpful. I made a decision in 2009 to leave my corporate job and start my business, and I was going to go all the way till I was bankrupt. That was the decision. There was no going back, and I made it work. And I recognized that, in retrospect, looking back, there was a lot of failures along the way, and I'm still failing because I want to go to higher levels. And this is never going to end. But you have to be willing to go through way more than anyone else to produce the results. Most people want the results, but they don't recognize how much work it takes to produce the results, how much awareness, and more importantly, how many rejections, how many failures they got to go through. And usually they think it's far less than is actually required. So think about this for a moment. Most of us think that there's going to be a certain amount of rejections that they're going to go through. They're going to mentally prepare themselves for that amount of rejections until they get the results. And a lot of times they are underestimating. Most of the time they're underestimating. And when they're underestimating to a large volume. That's why it's very important to enjoy the process as much as it is to enjoy achieving the outcome. If you do that, then this becomes a meditation. This becomes a way of life. Rejection and failure and saying no is not a bad thing. It's a way of life because it's, as I mentioned, just a calibrator. It's just calibrating you to tell you what to do. If you got involved, and maybe some of you are, in paid advertising, and you set up a whole paid funnel, and you drive Facebook traffic to it, and you've never done it before, most likely you're going to get a lot of no's. Not just no's from your prospect, but no's in conversion. You're going to get no's. If you give up at that point, you're going to end up like 90-something% of the people. Or even worse than that, most people never even get to that point. And the ones that do get to that point give up too soon. They say, it didn't work. They fail to understand optimization. Optimization is one of the most important concepts that I've learned in my life. A good movie to watch is Hiro Dreams of Sushi. It's a journey of how many points he optimizes in the process of making sushi for his guests. Everything from the client experience to the portions to the quality of the food. It's all optimization. Japanese Kaizen method. Study the Kaizen method. I might do some videos on that. But anytime you don't produce the optimal results that you desire, you essentially fail at either a macro level, you didn't get the results, or micro level. And most people cannot endure the micro level failures. It's easy to just conclude it didn't work out. But like I said, going back to the paid advertising campaign, if you run one of those, you're going to fail in many different areas. You're going to have to say, you have to turn all those little tiny no's in which you failed in, which are micro elements of the entire process, into yeses. Then it produces the results. And then you move on to success in that area. So you can see how much involvement there is to make something work. Okay, make something work, there's a lot of involvement. Now, even in my YouTube channel, when I started making these videos, I was getting a lot of no's from the audience in the sense that nobody was watching my videos. In the sense that when people were watching it, they didn't really care because it didn't really have a certain voice. It didn't really have a unique position. It didn't have something unique that was, something that was very personalized and that was valuable to them, but they couldn't really find anywhere else. It took me a long time to be able to come up with this format. Many no's. But really the key is when you start producing results to remember the important fact that you're going to go through way more no's than you think, unless you achieved mastery on it somehow, or you're natural at it, or you're lucky, or you somehow manage to command, laws, spiritual laws, or whatever, magical laws, or whatever, in your favor. There's things like that, but why not put things in your favor and remove the one element of human nature that doesn't really serve us that much anymore? I mean, I think fear of failure should be there to some degree, a healthy level, depending on what it is. But for the most part, that fear, which really comes from, way back in the days, tribal societies where there was a lot of scarcity, doesn't really serve us. So you might as well work to rewrite that story right now. And one day will come where humanity will evolve to the point where we don't have as much of that wiring of fear of failure in us, because we're going to evolve past it. But you can start that right now. So some key insights and perspectives. The way to level up is through success that is uncovered through repetition. Okay? To summarize everything I'm talking right now, the more you try, the more you will find success at not just a macro level, but micro, small successes along the journey, right? For example, in fitness, if your goal is to hit a certain level of body fat, certain level of lifts, certain level of muscle mass, or whatever it is your goal is, it can be very discouraging when you realize that there's all these variables beyond your control that you won't foresee until you go on this journey. And if you don't hit your result, you're going to feel discouraged. But you will continue on the journey when you realize that you are making incremental improvements every day, every week, small incremental improvements. And that right there, when you see that from the actions that you take, and you recognize that that's moving you forward through the repetition, it's going to set you on a habitual pattern towards producing results. A lot of people that don't get the results that they want just don't stay at it every single day for the long term. I would say most success in like business and a lot of areas in personal development just requires you to stay through the no's, the failures for the term. So you can see this book is not just about rewriting the meaning of the word no, but no means a lot of different things, multidimensional. No is rejection, but no is rejecting yourself. No is rejecting yourself at a macro level, the obvious no, and micro level, the little granular steps along the way. If you essentially don't go to work out in the morning, stick with your routine, in a way you're kind of rejecting yourself. So different perspectives that you could look at it, and I wanted to open you up to maybe some possibilities that you never looked at of how this book can be so valuable for you. Okay, so next is the wantingness to fail. So once you are accepting of failing, you're like, okay, now I'm willing to fail. Then the next step is you actually then now actively and are dedicated to failing because you recognize that hearing the no, the rejection is going to move you forward. So now you're like, look, I'm doing this thing. And every time I get rejected, I'm going to get excited. This is when you start to reassociate and you actually start to release positivity, thoughts, and feelings when you fail. You start to rewire the brain. Let's look at some quotes in the book. You know, the comfort zone is never static. It is always in a state of expansion or retraction. So when you start to evolve to maybe the third level, you start to embrace the idea that your comfort zone is something that you have to expand. You have to step out of your comfort zone. You have to grow. There are going to be things that before, back in the days, you used to feel a lot of fear doing, that if you continue expanding your comfort zone in that area, it's going to seem so easy. For me personally, when I started doing the speed reading workshops in 2010, I used to do Saturdays and Sundays, 50 students at a time, Saturdays and Sundays, and it was one of the most stressful experiences in my life because it was such a hard workshop to teach, and I was not seasoned as a teacher. I wasn't taught on the mechanics of teaching, and I was afraid of getting rejected by the audience, and I'd get negative feedback from the audience and so forth. But the more I did it, the more repetition I involved myself with in the task of teaching the speed reading workshops, the more I ended up embracing it, and it became just kind of a normal thing. And that was true for many different areas of my life. Like I right now have no problem asking for putting an invoice down or asking for payment or putting a quote together. Whereas in the earlier stages of business, I was afraid to do that because I didn't want people to reject me. Okay, so the more you do it, the more your comfort zone expands and you can stretch it further as you get to higher levels. And I know some, business consultants who charge 6 figures a day for their consulting service. When I first heard that, I was like, whoa, that is outside of my comfort zone. But then I found myself associating with them and it starts to seem like the norm. Okay, so when you start to also see that others have pushed themselves beyond their comfort zone and it's now the norm for them, and that's why it's important to get around people that are at higher levels than you, it starts to be okay for you to live that reality. Like you'll feel more comfortable in living that reality, but it's not a substitute for taking action. You still have to get out there. You still have to get rejected to stretch that comfort zone. A willingness to fail means a person will tolerate just enough failure to get what they need from life, no more, which is number 2. A wantingness, on the other hand, means you are just not tolerating the no's in your life. You're actually beginning to seek them. You actually start to embrace the no's. You're excited about them. You're like, okay, I know I'm going to get rejected now. When I go out today and do what I got to do, I know I'm going to get rejected. However, those rejections are going to grow me. In fact, I know that if I'm only getting yeses from whatever it is you're doing, then I ain't pushing myself high enough. I'm not growing because you're actively looking to grow your comfort zone. This is more about the journey than it is the result. Instead of avoiding rejection, what if we made the decision to seek rejection? Instead of avoiding no or perhaps simply tolerating, what if we went out of a way to actually go for no? And that's what this book is about. So one of his friends in this book talks about network marketer. And by the way, if you have not been in any network marketing, I don't do any network marketing right now, but I remember back in 2008, involved with network marketing, I learned a lot about dealing with rejection. It was, I don't know. I mean, neither here nor there about using network marketing as a vehicle to build a business. I mean, there's pros and cons to any kind of business, just a matter of choice. But however, I do feel network marketing is very valuable for anyone to experience for a number of years, or 1 year at least, to being in network marketing as a prerequisite to building your own business. Because in those kind of industries, they really get you to focus on selling and handling rejection. And then you build a skill that can take you to higher levels of success when you do build your own business from scratch. Because then you'll really know how to deal with rejection and get sales. So his friend was a network marketer. If his goal is to get 10 people per week to come to a meeting, and typically about 5% of those people he approaches are willing to attend, then his goal would be to get 190 people to say no. Okay, so now he's switching the perspective around. A lot of what people do is they say, okay, I want to get 10 people per week to come to my meeting. So they're going to go out and look for 10 yeses. While that's a good strategy, you're kind of operating from a different perspective. You're not really valuing the failures. What they're saying is value the failures because it's optimization, it's growth, it's getting you closer, and you're desensitizing yourself to it. So no's aren't really going to mean anything. When it comes to network marketing really is about going out and talking to as many people and making offers as possible. I mean, you get better at the sales, but the thing that holds people back is the fear of rejection. And those that do well in that industry are the ones that have desensitized themselves from rejection. Now, usually what ends up happening is those people just become radically successful in no matter what area of their choice. They move into real estate, they move into building their own businesses, and because they've been desensitized from rejection, that way of being, which is now wired in their neurology, is brought into other things that they're doing. So what he's doing here is he's saying, all I have to do is get 190 people to say no, then I'm going to get my 10 people. That's it. That's all I got to do. So he goes out and he doesn't care if he gets really a yes or no. I mean, he cares, but he doesn't put the same weight on the yes and no as everyone else. No is good for him and yes is good for him. No means move on to the next person. I'm getting closer to the volume of people based on statistics, based on my track record of how many people I figured out through mathematics, how many I got to approach to get 10. And he's just, boom, either a no or either a yes. And, it can seem very scary. And theoretically in this conversation, it might even seem it's not that hard. But when you go out there and you actually do it, it's scary. It is scary. But we have to break through it because there's no substitute. If it was that easy, there's no substitute for taking action. If it was that easy, everyone can do it. Everyone would do it. But when we should start to shift our perspective and say, how can we look to embrace failure? How can we look to actually go for no? Then it makes it just a little easier because then we start reframing. We don't have so much an avoidance for the word no or rejection. The magic word is next. When a doctor loses a patient, they train doctors when they lose their patient, they must be able to focus on their next patient. They can't dwell upon their patient because that happens. Statistically, they'll try their best and they'll lose a patient. So they're trained to be able to focus on the next physician. They must be able to move on. It's the only rational approach. But what do most of us do when we have a failure? We analyze it, languish over it, and let ourselves get buried by it. When what we should be doing when something doesn't go our way is to simply say next and move on. Just next and move on. Train yourself to do this. So that's another benefit to setting no goals. To get built-in protection from prematurely ending a hot streak, he continued. When salespeople hit a streak of yes, the worst thing they could do is back off and slack off. But that's exactly what they usually do. But when you're going for no and you hit a hot streak of yes, you actually step up your sales attempt to hit your no goal. Would a manager of a baseball team keep his star player out of the game just because he was on a hot streak? So imagine that for a moment. Okay, let's say you had to approach 100 people with your opportunity or your business proposition, whatever, to get 10 clients. And 10 of them will be yes, and 90 of them would be no. And what you wanted to do is get 10 a week, and essentially let's up that. So 10 a week essentially would mean you'd have to make 100 approaches a week, and you would get 10, so you'd make 100 approaches a week. You divide that up by 5 days. But let's say you wanted to double that. Okay, you wanted to double your sales. You essentially have to get no 180 times, 180 no's. Now, if you're saying, okay, in the next 2 weeks, I'm going to go for 180 no's, that doesn't mean that you're going to deteriorate your performance just because you're aiming for no. It means that 180 no's that you hear are going to make you feel great. And the side effect of that is 20 sales based on statistics. You see the reframe here? So key insights and perspectives. One of my sayings is how you do one thing is how you do everything. So I like to think about all the areas of my life in which I'm avoiding rejection, where I'm avoiding hearing no. And I'm essentially doing it multiple dimensional implementation on this particular process. Number one is I'm going to actively seek no in multiple areas of my life. Friendships, personal, business, wherever. I'm going to go for no, number one. Number two, I'm going to get better, I mentioned this earlier in the video, at saying no. Clear-cut no to people by giving them the opportunity to optimize. By actually giving them the value of saying no. Saying no to them clearly gives them the opportunity to go for no, because the worst thing you can do to anyone else is keep them in the gray area because you can't say no. And that's also how you treat others is how you treat yourself. That's ruining your own psyche. So like I said earlier, if you want to get good at hearing no, one of the things we have to do is get good at saying no. And this goes beyond the book, but I feel it's very important to emphasize. Associate yourself with others who live this way. Okay? Very important. When you start to get into these higher levels, like level 3, 4, and 5, the percentages of people who live this way start to decrease. And what you want to do is you want to keep yourself in the consciousness of people that move towards, who have a willingness, who are excited by failure because they see the value of it. Keep yourself around those people to keep you in the consciousness, keep you in that energy. But not only that, they can teach you more things so you can optimize, because chances are if they're going for no and they're out there getting rejection after rejection after rejection while they're making their deals, they have a lot of real life concrete optimization data to give to you, and not based on some theories. Take inventory of your life and systematically say no to all the areas of your life you were saying yes to, and develop, say yes to, and that were not beneficial for you. Let me add that in there. Systematically say no to all the areas of your life that you were saying yes to because you were being timid, that were not beneficial for you, to develop the great joy at becoming, or I should say, great joy in doing so. So develop that joy of doing it. Look for the opportunities where you can say no. Those are the areas that you can practice creating those boundaries. And when you can set, like I said earlier, you set the boundaries internally within yourself, you can value the boundaries of another person. You'll respect when they say no to you. And you'll find the joy in doing that. And you'll also become good at hearing no. Because when you get good at hearing no, you are essentially you've rewritten the story. You can handle rejection. You are now then ready to move on to the higher levels. But before we go there, let's talk about how to go for no. Some of the elements I pulled from the book. Rather than setting goals for the numbers of yeses you're planning to get each week, you can set goals for the number of no's you're going to collect. Again, it's not because you want to fail, it's because you're rewriting as an exercise the meaning of failure, the meaning of no, and you recognize based on numbers that a lot of people will say no, but if you just keep going, you're going to find the yeses. Next, the most empowering word in the world is no. Okay, that's what they talk about. And I had to read that again. I was like, well, interested in knowing why essentially the word no is the most empowering word in the world. Well, learning to hear no over and over again and to never quit. Now that builds character and self-esteem, which is empowering. Okay? So in other words, if you get over your fear of rejection and you're okay with hearing no over and over again through taking action and repetition and rewriting the meaning, then you're going to build your character and self-esteem. You know, if you read Nathaniel Brandon's book, Six Pillars of Self-Esteem, you'll realize that self-esteem is one of the most important things. Self-confidence, self-esteem is one of the most important things that, and arguably one of the only things that we're working on in personal development. And when we realize that we have overcome our fear of rejection, or we're overcoming it, and we're going to higher and higher levels, then you're building core confidence, a powerful, deeply rooted, grounded character. And that is why no. That is why they say the most empowering word in the world is no. So level up higher than that. Okay, number 4, fail bigger and faster. Okay, so what does this mean? Statistically, research shows that 44% of salespeople give up after one no. 22 more give up after the second no. 14% give up after the third no. 12 give up after the fourth. What does that come to? I did some quick math in my head. 92%, I replied. Correct. 92% of all salespeople give up without asking for the sale a fifth time. Okay, 92%. But research has also shows that 60% of all customers who say no 4 times, they finally say yes. This means the quickest way to separate yourself from the rest of the pack is to at least 5 no's from everyone you try to sell to. So now this is going even higher. Okay? This is called tenacity. And we're not talking about pushing people here, but we're talking about overcoming objections. I'm not going to get into this because that would be a lengthy discussion on the sales elements, and I probably will do a video on sales elements. But when someone says no to you, sometimes that's the beginning of the sale. A lot of times it is. 60-something% of the time of success is being left on the table if you do not overcome the objections. They say no, you don't intrusively push them, but you take a step back and you have a discussion with them and you figure out why they're saying no, and then you ask them again. You overcome those objections. You keep going and you go and you keep going. So there are multi-dimensional ways of amplifying your ability to hear no. So we mentioned earlier, if you go up to people, you're trying to do sales, and they say no, you move on to the next person. That's one way of doing it. And you get to higher levels, you implement hearing multiple no's from them because you're working with the objections. And after you've run the objections through them, if they still say no, then you move on. But if you're persistent, you got tenacity, you'll go through about 6, 7, 8 no's without, again, annoying, because we don't want to annoy and become a pest to people. There's an artful way of doing this, and you get better with experience. That's why it's important to do it as much as possible. Then you start getting into failing bigger and faster. So one of the examples I talk about is by focusing on accounts with the potential to lease 20 copiers, talking about copier salespeople here, they would focus on accounts where by closing the account, they would lease 20 copiers versus looking at a company that only needed 1 copier. They only needed to close 1 sale to get 20 units. So the idea here is to take a step back and say, where can I apply the go for no principle in which when there's a yes, my results multiply because I can get more sales, a higher volume of sales. So one of the things that I recommend that you study is Jay Abraham's 3 Ways to Grow Your Business Model. 3 Ways to Grow Your Business Model. I'll put some links in the description resources over to that. But there are many ways of growing a business, and Jay has discovered 3 ways that are all about exponential growth. If you understand the 3 ways to grow your business and you overlap that with the contents of Go for No, now you're on to moving on to the next level, which we're going to talk about, which is failing exponentially. Failing exponentially. But before we go into there, let's talk about some key insights that I pulled from that. So essentially taking bigger risks, stretching your comfort zone, raising the price point of your offerings, selling higher end, bigger ticket items that scare you, dealing with people that are excellent at dealing and are great dealers, so now you have to raise the bar of your ability to deal. Okay? Some people are easy to deal with, and most people look for the easy sales. Other people are difficult, but they provide high-level rewards. Okay? They're great, especially high success. People have a high level of success in business, for example. They have a lot of people pitching to them and offering them stuff. You're going to hear no left, right, and center from them, and they're not going to think twice when they say no to you. But if you can't handle their no's and you can't handle taking a step back and coming at them and dealing with people like that, then you're not going to get those higher level skills. And again, that doesn't come from theory. You can consume theory, but it's more important to be actually doing it. Another example of feeling bigger and faster in the realm of going for no is essentially starting a business. Because you start a business, you don't have entrepreneur experience, you're going to get rejected a lot in the beginning, and then you're going to start implementing this automatically. And again, on the flip side, say no to the bigger areas of your life that you want to change drastically as a result. And I always say this: if you want to get good at hearing no, you've got to be good at saying no. So, what are some of the areas of your life that you're afraid to say no in right now? What are the things that you're holding on to because you don't want to let go of that are massive and big? And when you say no to them, they'll no longer be there. Your life will transform as a result. Okay, that's some big go for no in areas where the payoff is high and the risk of humiliation is high. So one of the things that happens to us is when we move towards the opportunity of either hearing yes or no from whatever action we take, sales as an example, when we make the pitch, a lot of times we look for opportunities where the humiliation is low. And if the person says no, it's like, okay. But if the humiliation is high, then you're going to really learn at a higher level. And that's going to be some scary stuff. And I recommend, I'm going to put a link in the description, video that I watched from Bob Proctor on YouTube about the terror barrier. And when I watched this video, I watched it 50 times. I watched it over and over and over again because I really wanted in my subconscious mind the rewriting of the stories I'm telling myself of not raising the bar and going for higher, bigger no's because I'm scared. And essentially with the terror barrier, once you break through it, your paradigm changes. And what we really want to do is we want to change our paradigm. Okay, we want to change how we look at failure. That's what we're doing here. And if you want to change it rapidly, then the higher the terror, the higher the fear of the productive action, the greater the impact on your paradigm. So the 5th level of the level of failure is failing exponentially. Failing exponentially. All right, so you can take risks, you can go for no, and then you can raise the bar and you can go for bigger no's, and you can become fascinated and insatiable and excited about going towards failure. You recognize that is not only something that is going to increase the likelihood that you're going to get you're rewiring, you're reprogramming your brain to make yourself a machine of producing results, a sales machine if you're in sales. Then the next thing you want to do is you want to fail exponentially. And what this is leading others down the same path. And essentially what I'm trying to do in this video. My goal here is to fail exponentially. And how I do that is I fail through you. By you watching my video and studying this stuff and reading this book that I recommend that you get if this is your area that you want to work on, You're going to go out and you're going to fail. Okay? You're going to fail and you're going to start producing results. This is where you inspire others, your team, your clients, your prospects, your audience to also fail exponentially, because the rewards come back to you in some shape or form. And if you have a business and you have a sales team and you build the philosophy of failing and everything we're talking about in this video in there, the results that they get, you get a percentage of that, obviously, because it's your business. Great leaders help everyone in the organization understand the need to fail faster. Everyone. So when I work with businesses, my philosophy, how you do one thing is how everything is incorporated with everyone, or I don't want to work with them. Leadership comes from the top down. As a leader, you go first and you do everything. The highest and best use, but won't get into discussion on that. You wouldn't tell people to do something that you would not do yourself had you were required to do it. And when it comes to building a powerful sales organization, or an organization in your business or another business if you're consulting that is focused on bringing in sales, which requires them to go out and fail and get rejected and so forth, and you as a leader organization go first and you instill in everyone the understanding of the concepts covered book and the passion of rewriting the stories, the negative stories associated with failure. The second is to reward people for their failures. So the next thing is we want to reward people for their failures, not just their successes. Everyone runs over to congratulate people for their sales success, but how often do we go out of our way to congratulate people for their failures? See, the reason why we want to do this is because we want people to recognize that when you're failing, you're learning. When you're succeeding, you're reaping your rewards. You could be learning also. But when you're failing, that's when you get a lot of data. That's when you get a lot of insights. And if you're not failing, or you're trying to avoid failure, then you're procrastinating, and you are not taking advantage of the opportunity that is presented to you, the post-mortem after the failure, the deconstructing, the analyzing, the studying, based on the response that you got that wasn't desirable. You're not really valuing that. And leaders want to help your team fail exponentially. Install that belief system with their teams. Everyone, okay, everyone. How you do one everything means that even if someone in your organization is not involved with selling, they should still be taught to embrace failure also, because it is a universal perspective that is best shared with everyone to keep the synergy. And even if they're not involved with sales, there's still opportunities for them to fail in what they're doing. And when you can install this in an organization, the cool thing that happens is that people aren't going to hide their failures. And one of the worst things that happens that I see in organizations is when people create these like black boxes of failures that they're hiding that's not brought to the management of the team, which creates even more issues that when they leave the organization, the other new employees or contractors or whatever have to come in and try to figure out what was going on. There isn't clear communication happening in the organization. But when you embrace failure at all levels of the organization, well, then something powerful is going to happen, because everyone is looking to bring to the table the failures that they have so they can understand, so they can grow from it, they can analyze, they can optimize, not just for themselves, but for everyone else. And if you reward that, you encourage it, then you're setting yourself up for exponential growth in business. So key insights and perspectives, always you go first. As the leader, you go first. Even if you're not the leader of your organization, you go first, and people will start following you. And if they don't want to follow you, then you got to leave, because you want to surround yourself in this consciousness. Build a team where going for no is the mantra. and surround yourself with people who encourage you to go for no, and, as I mentioned, my other element that I've added to build upon the discussions is about say no. Get good at going for no and saying no. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you want a copy of the mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I will talk to you soon. Your